Hey guys, Ray Haas here. On this channel we cover tips, tools, and strategies to maximize your ROI in your sales and marketing and business in general, especially when it comes to B2B, enterprise, and anything involving larger, more complicated sales. So if you haven't subscribed already, consider subscribing. And if you have any comments, always feel free to leave a comment. And most importantly, the most important thing, leave a like. Let's get into it. I'm really excited to be talking about this topic because this is one that's really near and dear to my heart. It's one that I've been doing for more than 13 years now, and that is B2B sales. So I've been doing enterprise sales, B2B sales with software as a service companies, software companies, hardware companies, startups, individual entrepreneurs, a lot of different companies. The things we're going to be talking about in this video are really important for you to bear in mind so that you can avoid wasting time on things that don't actually help, or even worse, actually negatively affect the whole process. This could be the difference between you wasting a lot of your time making the client angry, frustrated, or just eventually saying no, as opposed to, most importantly, a happy client. Make the client feel like you understand them. This is different than rapport building. You need to do your research on this one. If you're talking to a company and you know that they have specific challenges, things that they're trying to overcome, it would be good that you can actually somehow display that. Suppose that you popped onto their Facebook, onto their LinkedIn, and you see that they just raised a new funding round, a round A for $168 million, okay? That means that they are growing. So if they're growing, that means one of the things that they're going to be probably doing is hiring a whole bunch of new employees. So if, for example, in my case, you're aware of something like that, you know that they probably need to keep all of that organized. Maybe they want to bring everybody in on a new system, one that's more efficient, that can save them time. Maybe they have a system that is not built for the number of people or the amount of growth that they're going to be experiencing. If you can relate and understand and maybe use examples of what's going on in this company, and they can somehow see the fit, right, of what you're offering and what's going on with them, and that you could show that you understand that, it's a much better position to be in than to just come in blind and treat them like a script, basically. You're not going to use a script with a big customer, with a big prospect, or with a big company. You can't use a script. You need to do your due diligence, and this is going to be part of it. If you do your due diligence correctly, you're going to be able to talk to this client. We can even do smaller businesses. If you know that, for example, it's a local business and they opened up a new location and they're expanding, that's something that you might be able to use for whatever service or business you have. If they're expanding, that's something you want to know about. So you can check their Facebook, you can check their Twitter, you can check their website, of course, if they have a blog or any kind of news, or you can even just do a simple Google and see if there's any news coming out about this company before going into the call. If you have that extra edge, that can really help you. Tip number 2, it's not about you and your info, it's about them. So it's not good enough that you're just going to talk and tell them things. As a general rule of thumb, listen. And when I say listen, it's not just listen, it's actively listen, tactical listening. It's not listen and then think of what you're going to say next. It's listen and actually care about what they're saying, care about what the customer's saying, their challenge, the prospect, the company that you're talking to. If you can show that you actually care, that's huge. Not everybody does that. Most B2B and sales reps and a lot of people that generally offer services, they're interested in their service themselves, but they're not so interested in the client, the prospect, the business. They're less interested about them, and they want to just say, here's the features, here's what I have. It doesn't work anymore. Not in modern sales, not in the modern business world. It's about them, not you. Let me give you an example. Suppose that you come into a doctor's office, right? If you come into that doctor's office and the doctor just starts telling you things without asking you any questions, asking about your symptoms, how you're feeling, what kind of medicines you've used, he's not asking, he's not listening. Of course, he's not listening because he's not giving you the chance to speak or asking you any questions. He's just telling you about, okay, so I could see that you have a runny nose. I could see that you haven't been, you've lost a little bit of weight, you've gained a little bit. So therefore, what you need is this, this, and that. Are you going to trust this doctor? He didn't even ask you. What are your symptoms? What are you taking right now? What are you feeling? No questions. You haven't listened, the doctor hasn't listened to you at all, and he's just going to give you a prescription? How would you feel about that? So listening basically involves asking questions, getting feedback, and then listening to that feedback. So if you're hearing, as a doctor, for example, if you're hearing that this patient has so-and-so symptoms, they have so-and-so allergies, they have a predisposition to maybe a possible illness genetically or something like that. Think about this in the context of a business or a company. If they're telling you that they have an issue where they're losing sales because they're having difficulty in the closing stage, or because when they onboard clients, they're not qualifying them well enough. If they bring things up like this, you want to take notes of that. And that's another small tip. Have a notepad, not a computer. You definitely don't want to have somebody hearing how you're typing something on your keyboard. You want to have a piece of paper, pen and paper, and actually write down the notes. And you'll notice that you're listening much better because you're taking notes. And if you actually mention maybe that, oh, okay, hold on 1 second. So you said this, I'm just taking notes. So let me just make sure I understand. So you said, that's going to make them notice that you're actively listening and you actually care about what they're saying. Makes a huge difference, especially if you show up to a meeting, if it's investors or something like that, and you sit down with a pen and paper and you're actually taking notes. Not everybody does that. So you as a business development expert or as a sales expert or as a consultant, whatever the position is that you have, if you're coming in and taking notes, that even gets people to talk more. It makes them open up. Number 3, don't sell to gatekeepers. This involves doing your homework. So if you're going to come in, you're talking to somebody, you don't know who you're talking to. It might be a secretary. It might be an engineer, right? Okay, you can talk to them initially just to figure out, to get through the door, figure out where you need to go, maybe establish some initial questions and things like that. But for really pitching, unless you're trying to create a champion, and this is a whole strategy in and of itself, but generally speaking, you want to try to establish, even before you go into the phone call, you want to know who the decision makers are. LinkedIn, maybe LinkedIn Premium, Facebook, Google, those are your friends. The website of the company, obviously. So you want to go in there, you want to figure out, who do I need to talk to? And if you need to, you can make a phone call prior or an email, whatever works, assuming that you can find somebody that would know the answer of who you're supposed to talk to. This is really important for larger companies. Generally, one of the key differences between B2C sales, dealing with customers, and business sales is that you might not always be talking to the right person. So you have to figure out who the right person is before you go into a call. Make sure that when you're actually in the door and you've gotten past the secretary, you're actually sitting in the right chair, that you're talking to the right person. Okay, so like I said, that was the 3 tips. Because you stuck around to the end, and because obviously you left a like, I'm going to give you one more bonus tip. Here's the thing. You need to talk their language. If I come in and I'm selling to a lumber company, deep in the hills of, let's say, I don't know, Washington or something like that, right? Or Canada. And I have a British accent. I've never been to a forest. I'm maybe from England. I don't know anything about being a lumberjack. And I go in there and I just talk like my city boy self from London with my English accent. I'm not speaking their language. I don't know anything about being a lumberjack. They know I don't know anything about being a lumberjack. They know I don't know anything about them, what they're going through. It's obvious. Even just the moment I open my mouth and my accent and the first couple things that I say, it becomes really obvious. Tip number 4 is read their Facebook page. maybe talk to some people if you can from their company or that are in that industry. Call and maybe just ask questions like you're trying to get a quote from somebody that's in that industry, for maybe their competitors or somebody in a different company that deals with that industry or is in that industry, and get a feel for the way they talk, the kind of jargon that they have, the kind of technical speech that they use, right? The technical words that they use. So then when you're using their language and they notice that, they're going to open up to you much more easily. If I come in and I maybe comment, maybe there's some news that came out about their industry and I mention that, they will notice that you're actually familiar with their industry. Oh, this isn't just some guy. This guy actually knows about what we do. This guy knows about the kind of news that is in our industry and the things that are happening in our world. If you're going to try using their words, you want to do that early on so you can build a little bit of trust. Build that baseline, right? That foundation. And then the phone call, the discussion, the meeting, that'll go much more smoothly. If you've enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you have any questions, comments, be happy to read them and I'll try and respond to them. And thanks for watching.